Hello everyone, and welcome to Off the Cuff, where the headlines come to life. And today we have with us Dr. Sahar Swidan, who is really one of the most sought after pharmacists in the state. She is the owner of Pharmacy Solutions in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and that's not the only thing she does. She has a gamut of things, and talk about really specializing in your field. I think Dr. Sahar has done it all. Welcome to Off the Cuff and WDHT TV.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Dr. Swidan, you have a whole list of criteria that you have accomplished and approached in terms of your pharmaceutical career. Tell us a little bit about that, because I told you earlier, I think it would take me an hour to talk about this.
Well, just kind of
not to mention your book that you're writing too.
Yeah, in a snapshot, I went to school at the University of Michigan and obtained my Doctor of Pharmacy degree. And then after that, I continued on for further education in torture, as I call it, to become, to be fellowship trained in biopharmaceutics and gastroenterology. During that time, actually, when I was doing my fellowship, one of my professors fell in love with a Frenchman, actually. So here I am, a young punk with a multi-million-dollar grant to do a lot of clinical research. So we continued to do that. And then I actually traveled to Europe a lot, which was a great experience. Wow. And at that time, because I was so young and I was fascinated with the European healthcare system, so that's what I really learned, I would call more biological or physiological based medicine, lifestyle medicine. They really looked at the whole body as a whole. They were very big in pharmaceutical, nutraceuticals, lifestyle, individualized approach to therapy, if you will. So I became fascinated with that, and I learned a lot by traveling there, working with my professor on the multiple studies we were conducting. When I came back, I fell in love with it, and really, I've been teaching and lecturing since day one of life. I think I was born with the gift to gab, if you will. So I've always been, educating and teaching really for staying in that.
George Washington University, Wayne State University.
So yeah,
I've got to put those
I've
plugs
been faculty,
in.
Exactly. So yeah, George Washington, I was faculty at the University of Michigan for really 23 years and taught at different levels and different, my clinical area of expertise is really pain management and neurology, right. And I have always been, expertise in that. Most of my publications, book chapter and books that I have written have been in the area of pain management, migraine, headache, and then really because hormones are so intertwined with everything, and also with catamenial headaches, what we call catamenial or hormonal induced headaches, if you will, or menstrual headaches. I had to become a hormone expert, not by choice, but because, they were so common with so many other diseases. Right. And neuroendocrine immune dysfunction, as we call it in the pain patient, is very associated with that. So I think until honestly, I've mastered that. We were missing a huge piece of the puzzle in helping our patients, to the next level.
Which was?
Really addressing hormones, addressing immune, addressing lifestyle, addressing diet and exercise, because it's all inflammatory load to the body or inflammation load. So when we decrease that, so I was very lucky and privileged to be exposed to the European system of healthcare at a young age. Became fascinated with this, and one of my best friends and colleague now, Dr. Pam Smith, who's the hormone queen, as I call her, we met literally 23 years ago. She was lecturing in one area, I was lecturing in another area at the Michigan Medical Society meeting, and she was like, wow, you're really speaking about nutraceutical, pharmaceuticals, lifestyle. Where did you learn this? Because she was starting this national fellowship in in this type of, we would call physiologically based medicine, right? And so she asked me, like, oh, would you like to lecture together and stuff? And we've been friends, and literally we always call it the Pam and Sahar Pony Show, if you will, Dog and Pony Show, because we travel a lot around the country teaching this type of medicine, hormone, and obviously with my emphasis on pain management.
Very few pharmacists would really delve into, that criteria as you have. And I think it's so important to look at the whole body, to look at diet, to look at lifestyle rather than just masking something with medication. And I think that has been maybe the status quo lately with the pharmaceutical industry, especially with our opioid epidemic. People are just prescribing these pain medications, and young kids, adults, people who can't manage their pain are becoming addicted to that. So what's your vision on that? And we talked a little bit about diet, but yet I think it's more of a bigger issue than just that.
Absolutely. And I think, part of it, and we really can't fault anybody, because that's what everybody's taught, right? With pain management, we have some non-pharmacological things like ice, heat, elevation, things like that, water, warm water baths, things like that, and then we really have the pharmaceuticals, kind of like, the ibuprofens or anti-inflammatories of the world, if you will, the acetaminophen of the world, and then we had the Vicodin and opioids. And then, when you get into some of the fancier drug classes, if you will, some of the anti-seizure medicines, neuropsychiatric drugs, antidepressants and things like that, they are definitely used in pain management and stuff. But a lot of times, that's really, it's in the specialist hands, if you will, to kind of use that, and not necessarily in mainstream. So a lot of that, and that's why also, I think opioid became a crisis, and it was so funny because, 20 years ago, we made pain the fifth vital sign. We made a big emphasis on that. It has to be assessed. It has to be treated. It can't be,
sure.
But I don't know if we did the medical profession well by maybe not teaching them other tools, how to manage pain and manage it better, besides the few drug classes that we have, to include, like you said, lifestyle and other modalities that we know are fairly well published with some good data.
So what are the exact alternatives? We say lifestyle, but what can you do if you're in chronic pain? I mean, my Motrin 800, and I don't like to take medicines my entire life, but when you have inflammation, when you have, you get older, the arthritis and all that, you really don't want to be in pain. You think, okay, if I can pop a pill, I'll be better.
Right.
And I've been able to really manage myself and be very careful, but other individuals cannot. So what are the alternatives that are, baths are good, warm water, topicals and what have you, but that pain is very real to individuals who live with it throughout the day. So what are the alternative medications, herbal supplements? What is out there for people who have chronic pain?
And honestly, I don't like to call it alternative medicine. I like more integrative or complementary medicine, because I think when we call something alternative, we think like it's maybe voodoo, not well validated in science, no clinical studies and things like that. So, I prefer to call complementary.
Alternatives to opioids,
Yeah,
basically.
Absolutely, something to that, because I think, some of the nomenclature out there, and sometimes I do think it turns our, allopathic colleagues off, because I'm like, okay, well, that's not substantiated, that's voodoo medicine, if you will. So, the integrative type stuff, which are very complementary to the traditional stuff that we use. So, like you said, lifestyle, we know sometimes people with certain food intolerances, the big one that we know in the industry or in society, wheat, gluten, dairy are the big offenders, right? Soy, corn, things like that. Those are the typical ones that if your body is intolerant to them, they can cause inflammation, and inflammation is pain. I tease and say we almost have one medical specialty now. It's called inflammatology, because most disease states are coming to inflammation, right? Where, heart disease, high blood pressure, cancer, asthma, gut, migraines, neuroinflammation is, and things like that. Depression, neuroinflammatory type, is a cause of depression and things like that. So I think anything that we can do, also, we really swim in a bath of toxins, if you will, every day. Life is just a bit dirtier now. My mom always teases me because I'm such an organic, clean, non-toxin, crazy person. But 50 years ago, everything was cleaner, more organic.
Well, we didn't have
soil,
the synthetics and the additives to our food and everything else.
So just this kind of stuff, it's just adding an inflammatory burden to the body. So I think people are more prone to inflammation, and inflammation to some individuals is pain. That's the crux of it. So I think cleaning up, probiotics, which have been shown. I learned about probiotics literally 23 years years ago when I was first in Europe, they sell them at the corner, everything, at the checkout gas stations. Like we have 5-hour energy drinks here, and I'm like, what is this stuff? And they're like, oh, live bacteria. And I'm like, okay, and that's where we learned. But they have been shown.
Is that good for you or not?
Absolutely.
Because I've read stuff about don't ever use probiotics because it will do this to you. I mean, right. What are the myths and what are the realities? I guess.
So the myths and reality. So reality is we have tons of bugs in our GI tract, right?
Sure.
We have good and bad bugs. What you hope is you have a balance of good and bad, so they don't cause a lot of havoc, if you will. So many studies have shown good, if you will. They have also shown them to modulate literally your immune system. And we know sometimes in pain patients, the immune system is dysregulated, right? Autoimmune disease, right? The immune system, whatever trips it, whether it's viruses, toxins in the environment, food, things like that, just trip your immune system and causes inflammation. So definitely cleaning up the diet, probiotics, and modulating the immune system in the GI tract. 80% of your immune system lives in the GI tract. Also, happy hormones. So we think, 95% of serotonin, which is one of the happy hormones, is made in your gut, not in the brain. So definitely the gut is very important. And and really the adage, when we always say happy gut, happy brain, I mean, that's what it really comes from because of that. So when you have a healthier gut, inflammatory burden is less, immune system is healthier, happier, if you will, because you do have more serotonin, which is one of the happy hormones. What are some other things? Definitely lifestyle.
Well, wait a minute. What kind of foods would induce that serotonin building process in your gut to make you happier?
Yeah, so happier things.
I want food.
So it's kind of like, the carby stuff, right? So potatoes, white starchy potatoes, but actually if you cool it, it becomes resistant starch. So it's less, lower glycemic index, if you will, but it also helps enhance serotonin. And that's why sometimes when people can't sleep, because if you give people a little bit more serotonin, they will sleep better, right? Because serotonin is metabolized to melatonin.
Makes you happy, yeah.
It makes you happy, but it also makes more melatonin, right? So like carby stuff, so white potatoes. Turkey has lots of tryptophan, which is the precursor to serotonin, and that's why everybody kind of gets really tired and sleepy after Thanksgiving dinner.
Okay.
Because of the tryptophan in the turkey. So those are sometimes...
I'm writing this stuff down. Potato.
Natural things that we help for sleep induction, really, to people, So things like that. So avoiding, the big offenders in our society is wheat, gluten, dairy, things like that. But the problem is when you eliminate that, then people are still eating a lot of synthetic stuff. Yes, it's wheat, gluten free, but it's junk. You want whole food base, more veggie fruit, all the good stuff that we should all know, right?
Sure.
More veggie fruit, lean meats, things like that, Mediterranean diet, because it's an anti-inflammatory diet. Fish, which we know fish oil is very anti-inflammatory. Exactly.
And the grape leaves.
Chickpeas, lentil, organic whenever possible because it's just cleaner. Supplements and vitamins. I believe in eating your vitamins, if you will. So like blueberries have lots of anti-inflammatory properties and antioxidant properties, right? So whenever you can eat your green leafy vegetables,
right?
the colors, mixtures, blueberries, some supplements, can really help lower inflammation. And we have good data on it. For example, boswellia can help lower many inflammatory cytokines. Curcumin or turmeric, that's why, honestly, Indian populations tend to have less dementia
they use a lot
because
of
their diet, because
yes.
it's very anti-inflammatory, and, many others, fish oil is great, all those things. And so that's kind of the big ones.
When you look at the fish oil and people should be eating fish, but then again, you look at all the toxins in the fish, and so, how do you balance that as well?
Well, absolutely. So, you want to, because again, we just live in, it is a bit more toxic world, if you will. So, wild caught is definitely less mercury laden, dioxin and PCP laden. So I think wild caught, salmons and things like that, clear, farm raised sometimes depending can be actually more harmful than helpful. But if not, and not everybody likes fish, right, or seafood. So, good quality fish oil. Again, you have to make sure the quality of supplement is important here, right? Because again, you can put all kinds of stuff in supplements, they are regulated to some degree, but they're not regulated like the pharmaceuticals or drugs in this country, right? In Europe, they're very regulated, just like medication. So you want to make sure, like your fish oil says, free of dioxins, mercury, PCPs, pharmaceutical grade. Those are kind of some of the good buzz terms to look for in vitamins and supplements, because they're not all created equal. So, and that's why sometimes patients will go, well, I've tried that and it didn't work. And I said, well, what was the quality of it? What brands was it? Things like that. What was the dose? Because dosing is important also. And also, how long did you use it for? I think we're all so into the mentality, pop a pill and just fix it in 2 seconds.
Right.
But sometimes reversing a disease or decreasing pain does take time to accomplish.
Now, at Pharmacy Solutions, you do something called compounding. And that's something that not all pharmacists do, but that's something exclusive to you and a few others. But how does that really focus on the condition and on basically making something that is done exclusively for a particular patient?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you manage that?
Yeah, so, honestly, 20 years ago, and it was when I opened the pharmacy, because I just really wanted the patient in one setting to look at all the stuff and use different modalities for treatment. Pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, lifestyle, consultation services. We know when we consult patients, when we know when pharmacists work with patients, definitely, along with the providers and physicians, healthcare outcomes improve.
Sure, and you do workshops too.
So we do a lot of education workshop, personal consultations with patients and things like that too. So what is the compounding? It's really how pharmacy was practiced 100, plus years ago. So it's literally making something from scratch, if you will, getting all the ingredients for a cake, if you will, and making it from scratch. Now, what's unique about compounding, that it's a more personalized approach, because again, 100-pound women may need a different dose than a 350-pound male, for example, or a pediatric, a child, like with children, it's always milligram per kilogram. So it allows us to personalize dosing if need be, dosage form. So sometimes when a new baby's born preemie, and there's certain medications that they need, well, they can't swallow pills, obviously, yet. So we can reformulate some things into liquids, or transdermal gels, suppositories, nasal administration of medications, and things like that. So it allows you to make some unique dosage forms to meet the individual patient needs. The other thing, people sometimes are allergic to some of the constituents that we use either in the commercially available medications, like in tablets, suppositories, capsules, like patients sometimes may be allergic, for example, to magnesium stearate, but they need a medication to lower their cholesterol, like atorvastatin, let's say. So you can make these types of medications free of the items that they're allergic to. And obviously, then the patient can stay on the medication and be compliant and get better health outcomes. Bioidentical hormone replacement is, that's a huge field and huge topic now, where again, hormonal needs of each male or female, are very different from one person to the next. And so sometimes that one size fits all that we have available commercially may not be the best treatment for each individualized patient. And I think now with the advent of genomics and genomically mediated or personalized medicine, I think compounding will continue to grow, because now it is going to be very targeted treatment to that individual patient based on their genetic structure and makeup, your ability to metabolize the medication or not. Pharmacogenomics is a huge field, now neurogenomics, so many omic-y type fields, right? Which is awesome, because that's why we want to individualize treatment, because every person is their unique self, to achieve best outcome.
I can't think of anything more comforting than that, to know that when you go to a pharmacy, they're individualizing the medications that you need, and you're not ingesting things that you don't need within that medication. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And also, I think it would really deter from a lot of side effects too, because now you know the individual and what they're taking.
Yeah, absolutely. So for example, like celiac disease patient, right? So some medications may have as one of the ingredients a gluten additive in it, because that's how certain tableting technology,
so
or
you're able
capsules.
to extract that.
So we're able to take some of these because a celiac patient cannot have gluten, and so we're able to make whatever is needed without, let's say, the gluten component. Or we have patients with, let's say, red dye allergy, for example, and if that medication that's available commercially has red dye in it, well, they can't take it because it can cause anaphylaxis reactions, right? Or, a severe allergic reaction. So then we're able to make and reformulate these with them free of these allergens and things like that. So it's a huge asset to the community, to the medical community, really, that we're able to offer these services, because some patients really, you need those unique services. Hospice patients, sometimes at the end of life, you have to really get creative how to get medications into their bodies, but also nutrients. Autistic kids, sometimes it's very difficult to have medications or nutrients. So sometimes with the availability of these various dosage forms that we have, it's phenomenal. We're able to provide some of these needs to those children that otherwise, we're very finicky. We can reformulate a medication or a nutrient, let's say zinc, for example, because they tend to be deficient in a transdermal cream, where the mom can just rub it on the child and they don't even know, and not cause a lot of the hassles of, shoving something down their throat and things like that, which is very traumatic to kids and stuff. So, absolutely. So, it's so rewarding. Sometimes we've had these kids literally that were born with what's called inborn metabolism error, where they can't make certain things because of their genetic hiccups, if you will, So we've been able to make like serotonin and other things for them, literally, and we were compounding this since they were preemies, and now they're driving, to the pharmacy to pick up their medications and stuff. And these are life-sustaining type issues where these kids cannot survive without it. They have some of these genetic syndromes where they can't make their own cholesterol, for example, or serotonin. So it's been very nice and very rewarding and fulfilling, service that we can offer to the to the masses out there. And we're licensed in 40 states, so it's been very rewarding, because we get to work with patients and providers all over the country.
And I'm sure you're being sent those difficult patients too, in order to minimize.
A lot of times I always say, who thought of that name, Pharmacy Solutions? Because I said we only get problems, right, to find solutions. So I said we should have called it Pharmacy Problems.
Well, no, you come to your place
absolutely,
for
that's
solutions,
exactly
right?
the whole idea.
Yeah,
exactly. So they come to us with a clinical dilemma, and we really work very closely with the provider to try to find a solution. Absolutely, and we work very closely in this type of field, because you have to understand what are the issues, what are the challenges that the provider and the patient are having, and what unique solutions can we come up with personally for that patient.
I think you said something very, very, very profound. It's not one size fits all, especially in the pharmaceutical industry. There's a couple of things we still want to talk to you about. Alzheimer's, that's really scary. And I think, a lot of us who are, getting a little older and getting very, very forgetful, it definitely crosses our minds. What is the normal feeling of getting older and being forgetful, and what can we do to take care of our brains and keep it healthy when we get older? I know, exercising it, doing Sudoku and doing all that fun stuff, but there's got to be more to it.
Well, absolutely. And that field is exploding now, because that's everybody's fear. We really call, Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes now, what it's called, referred to also. So what does that mean, right? So we know that metabolically we have to keep the body as healthy as possible, because when you have a healthy body, you have a healthy brain,
mind.
Right? So, a lot of these diseases that we really once thought, so, Alzheimer's, okay, so you build a bunch of these plaques in the brain and things just don't connect and talk well, if you will, amyloid plaques and things. And actually I had the privilege of giving a lecture in Florida even just last month, and had the privilege to listen and speak also with Dr. Rudy Tanzi, who's doing phenomenal research out at Mass General. And what they're showing is that certain things were shown in petri dishes now, when they're doing clinical trials, that literally ate the amyloid plaques and removed them. So ashwagandha, which is a herbal medication, showed that, which is what's called an adaptogenic herb. So we know when your adrenals, which is the stress glands, right? So now everybody is stressed 24/7, right? Because we're a 24/7 society now. And so we know cortisol and high levels of constant cortisol, can be not helpful for the brain. So some of these adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha can help modulate that brain and keep the brain healthier and decrease what we call hippocampal shrinkage, right?
Okay.
Which has been shown in trials. The other thing is exactly decreasing inflammation. So what is Alzheimer's? What is Parkinson's? What is, MS? It's all inflammation, right? And things attack certain things, right? So when you come to the crux of it, a lot of times, if we can really keep sugars and metabolic stuff in check, blood pressure, the typical stuff that we all know. Healthy gut. We always keep going back to that because healthy gut, healthy brain, literally. And Dr. Perlmutter, who I had the pleasure of listening to and learning and lecturing with, has written a lot of that, the grain brain and certain things. So diet is very involved in that. Keeping things anti-inflamed, so curcumin, some of these supplements can really help decrease inflammation. Absolutely the exercises that because anytime we know the brain can train itself or retrain itself, so neuroplasticity, and that's, phenomenal field. So as many neuronal connections that you can create by doing new stuff will help deter, or help one of the factors to help you not get Alzheimer's later. Because, okay, if one highway shuts down, well, no problem. You got 1,000 other ones going and stuff like that. So we don't know if it's fully reversible yet. Can it be improved? Absolutely. So Dr. Bredesen, there's the Dale Bredesen protocol, or Dr. Bredesen, who I've had the pleasure of listening to also. He has a very specific protocol, and they're doing actually clinical trials now out in California to see, and they're kind of saying that they think they can reverse it, but they can definitely improve it and slow down the progression. I don't know if we can totally reverse it yet, but that's absolute progress. And with some of the data that Dr. Tanzi also lectured on was very phenomenal too, where he literally showed us in petri dishes, you can literally eat these amyloid plaques and hopefully rewire those neurons, if you will.
We've got a couple more minutes. This went by really, really quick, but there's this new medication for migraine headaches, Aimovig. You reminded me of it.
Aimovig, yeah.
Aimovig. What hope is there for migraine sufferers with this medication?
Oh my God, I'm so excited about this drug for multiple reasons. So first of all,
okay, that makes me excited. That you're excited.
So myself and doctors in our headache clinic, Rosen and Saper, we literally published a trial 18 years ago where we showed neuroinflammation in chronic pain and head pain patients 18 years ago. The problem is we didn't have things that targeted that neuroinflammation that occurs locally in the brain in migraine. And literally 18 years later comes Irainumab, which is basically targets a molecule called CGRP, or calcitonin gene-related peptide, that we know is one of the inflammatory mediators in the brain. And we know when we control and decrease inflammatory levels, we decrease the frequency and severity of migraine. So we've used a lot of other tools to try to decrease inflammation. We've used Boswellia, as I mentioned, because it really reduces inflammation. Low-dose naltrexone is another phenomenal advancement in really the treatment of various inflammatory syndromes. But we're very excited because this is very specific for migraines. It targets a very specific inflammatory peptide that has been shown in many trials to be elevated in acute and chronic migraine sufferers. So this offers huge hope for treatment. And really, it's first in class that specifically targets the problem versus a Band-Aid, as I call it, to fix something. This really targets the actual problem, one of the causes of migraine.
Wow. So that's huge,
well, yes,
huge
we're very
breakthrough.
Excited about that in the headache community for sure.
There's so much more I wanted to talk to you about. Will you come back?
Absolutely.
All right.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely,
for being
my
here.
pleasure.
Dr. Sahar Swidan, a lot of information, a lot of new technology and a lot of things to remember about our diet and lifestyle before we go to the medications of opioids. So be careful out there, think twice, get that exercise, and eat right. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us on Off the Cuff today.